Uproar over non-inclusion of cost of living on list of agenda for bipartisan talks between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, even as government begins implementing Finance Act.
Senator Okiya Omtata files notice of appeal at the Supreme Court against decision to lift orders barring the suspension of the Finance Act 2023.
And also this morning, West African leaders threatened military action against Niger's junta that took power in a coup last week. Leaders give junta 7 days to reinstate deposed President Mohamed Bazoum.
Well, rise and shine, grab your coffee or tea or whatever fuels your morning. This is Morning Cafe, where we wake you up the best way we know how.
Most definitely, and I trust that you had a great weekend, and that you had, week kickstarting this particular day with you. Fantastic. And speaking of matters kickstarting this Monday, we kickstart your day strongly as we discuss matters nutrition and matters fitness from around 8 a.m.
Well, good morning and a happy new week. I trust you had a great weekend and all cheered up for the new week. Welcome to Morning Cafe, this 31st day of July 2023. Of course, do join us throughout the week, every Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is the place to be. I'm Flora Limuki.
And I'm Stanley Nyarungita.
Oh, my name is Freddy Ndemule. Good morning.
The last day of July, guys.
It is payday for some, but I do understand there are those who were paid last week and by now they're already struggling. I tell you, mwezi bado ijaanza, itaanza kesho. Ole wako.
Interesting. Now to the diary, right?
Well, it's over to the top story now, and let's take a look at the top story this morning. Ahead of the much anticipated bipartisan talks between Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, a disagreement has emerged on whether or not the dialogue should address the thorny issue of the skyrocketing cost of living. Now, a statement released by National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah at the weekend, entailing details of consultations made to resolve the standoff, caused uproar after it failed to include the cost of living as part of the intended agenda of the talks. The Azimio team has already dismissed the statement, saying they were not a part of any such deliberations. Now, yesterday, President William Ruto also maintained that the cost of living issue was already being addressed by his government. So today we ask you on a question this morning. What would you want to see discussed in the dialogue between Azimio Coalition and Kenya Kwanza? What would you want to see discussed in the dialogue between Azimio Coalition and Kenya Kwanza? You can share your feedback at TV47 News. That's a handle on Twitter or X if you like. You can also text us on 22047. You can also give your feedback on Facebook. TV47 Kenya is a page. Over now to today's diary with Flora.
Well, I think, Fred, you should already get used to the X because
We've done already.
Well, when it has already changed, so at least now I'm able to see its X. Yesterday I was trying to post something and I'm looking for the bad app But I couldn't see it. I struggled for like a few minutes.
You see?
Then I realized, oh, it's X now.
So it's no longer tweeting,
you're
Xing.
You're Xing.
Okay.
Anyway, to our diary of the day, these are some of the stories that we have our eyes on today. The mediation talks. Kenya Kwanza and Azimio factions agree to hold talks that will be facilitated by former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo. The key issues to be addressed: the office of the opposition, the constitution of IEBC panel, among other issues. Also, Azimio protest. Azimio leaders say protest will continue amid the second round of the bipartisan talks. This even as jitters are witnessed over the lack of inclusion of the cost of living in the first draft of the grievances for the talks that was signed by the majority leader Kimani Ichung'wah and a minority leader Opiyo Wandayi. Also, Azimio leader security, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua now says that Azimio security personnel will be returned after 3 months. This is he gave this condition that is pegged on the end of the nationwide protest, saying the security officers are better suited to protect Kenyans. And the Finance Act case continues as Busia Senator Okiya Omtata moves to the Supreme Court to seek the last option to squash the Finance Act. Several proposals have already been implemented, including the coal rate charges by Safaricom and even the increase in the prices of fuel. And the world marks Breastfeeding Week, a week that is organized by the World Health Organization and UNICEF to create awareness on the importance of breastfeeding for child survival, among other things. With this year's theme focusing on providing a strategic opportunity to advocate for essential maternity rights that support breastfeeding, maternity leave for a minimum of 18 weeks, and ideally that should be 6 months or so. It's also World Rangers Day, and this day is inaugurated in 2007 to honor the people who dedicate their lives to protecting wildlife habitats and natural resources, not only in the country, but also across the globe. That is just what we have on our diary this morning. Of course, we keep on updating you as the hours move by.
Yes, a quick look at the weather in Nairobi today. It is 14 degrees Celsius here in Nairobi. It is quite chilly, but it promises to get a bit warmer later in the day, 26 degrees Celsius. How hot or cold is it where you are, even as you take a look at the daily newspapers today? Stanley, you're taking us through which one?
Even as you speak about hot and cold, the thing about coffee
is that it's on the front page of
it's on the front page of the Daily Nation, and well, here we serve your, coffee how you like it, either with the sugar, with everything. But then on the Daily Nation, it's bitter taste. So dear sugar, I don't know, Daily Nation decided to write a letter to sugar, and maybe to your sugar or whichever sugar you want this morning. But this sugar is quite bitter because haipatikani. Buying sugar is now leaving a bitter taste in the mouths of Kenyans as prices of the sweetener have hit a record high, but in a twin blow. The prices are set to rise even further in the coming days after the government introduced excess duty on sugar imports and temporarily suspended local milling. Now, this story is on page 7, so you can crunch the numbers there and see what you are buying from, your retail, and compare what is in the house. And, the particular numbers here, Fred.
Yes, and you see the use of the word dear sugar. I think the dear is, to mean it's costlier, dear more expensive. And I think what has caught my eye here is one of the particles included there on the front page. Sugar prices are retailing at between 225 and 250 per kilogram. Retailers are selling a 2-kilo packet of the sweetener at between 460 and 490. Wow. Means almost 500 bob.
Yeah.
For 2 kilos of sugar. Well, dear sugar it is. Quite dear.
And now what's actually frightening for Kenyans is the fact that Daily Nation says the prices are set to rise even further in the coming days after the government introduced excise duty on sugar imports. So you can, take a look at if you are in Western and Nyanza region, millers shunt operations. If you, around, or rather, if you, the country relies on Sony Sugar, Transmara Sugar, Sukari Industries, and Kwale International Sugar Company Limited, and also Kenya's net sugar importer, which means changes in global sugar prices directly impact prices locally. So you can take a look at that also.
And you see that graph at the bottom of the front page.
Yeah.
It shows how the price of sugar has kept escalating from January. January it was 155 for a kilo of sugar. February 147. It had actually dropped. Then in March 157, April 160, May 211, and now in July 260.
Yeah. I mean, Limuki, you love your coffee with a sweetener.
I'm actually really afraid because now if I love mine with a little bit of a sweetener, but it seems I'll have to get used to the
Oh yes,
the
it is an acquired taste, but you'll have to get used to it because wow.
I mean, probably you're walking along the sides of Mount Kenya, they say Nduvia or something like that. So.
Yes. I think I'll start getting used to that now. Actually, I've been trying that for the last 1 week. I think I was
really?
Preparing myself for this.
Way to go.
My tongue can't.
I think this one is really gripping for a headline today.
Yeah.
Also, still on the front page, I think, of the Daily Nation, Ruto Raila clash on talks agenda. It is our top story. President William Ruto and Azimio Chief Raila Odinga camps have clashed over the terms of reference for talks initiated by the international community, with the opposition disowning a statement released by the government side and insisting that the high cost of living must be on the table. In our question this morning, we ask you, what do you think
they should be talking about?
What do you want? What would you want to see discussed in the dialogue between Azimio Coalition and Kenya Kwanza? Let the conversation come from you. What would you want to see discussed in the dialogue between Azimio Coalition and Kenya Kwanza?
All right, that story is on page 4 and 5. You can dig onto that. Some matters, classrooms and education. Pay us our dues or we won't mark exams. Teachers now threaten. The story is on page 2. NAT wants they will disrupt tests if they're not paid that 2022 arrears. Right. Country matters, high prices of sugar and teachers not being paid. Away from that also, see matters health, hepatitis deaths to eclipse TB, HIV, malaria, warns World Health Organization. So WHO sounds the alarm on current hepatitis infection trends, which show that the disease now kills about 1 million people worldwide each year. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation.
Okay. Let's have a look at the Standard on... the headline on the Standard, Hustler Agenda takes backseat as talks begin, and a very interesting picture there of the common mwananchi. Is it? Okay. Whereas the sufuria has been the symbol of the recent protest by Kenyans demonstrating against the high cost of living, word from the two camps indicate the matter was not given serious attention, resulting in rows between the two groups. Remember, the two factions released a joint statement earlier on Saturday, of course stating the key issues among like 5 of them, and the cost of living was nowhere to be seen in all those grievances, but what seemed like a way to contain the situation yesterday, another the Azimio side released another statement with now the inclusion of the cost of living in the Finance Act, but whether or not they did not write that first joint statement together is a matter of wait and see, or to be confirmed later on, because I don't see how Kimani Ichung'wah and just decided, and Opiyo Wandayi, sorry, on the first statement that we would leave out the cost of living and the Finance Act, which were the sole issues when they were protesting. But then again, after a bit of uproar from Kenyans, we saw a change of the statement, So I don't know which one we should go with. But
it's still a thorny issue, and I think probably that's why we should ask the question, who should be setting the agenda for these talks?
Yes.
When clearly have their priorities upended.
Yes.
So you can answer your question, our question this morning. What would you want to see discussed in the dialogue between Azimio Coalition and Kenya Kwanza? They are watching, so your feedback will matter.
Yeah.
Most definitely. I mean, it's interesting for me, even as you continue with the Standard, with the Daily Nation and also the Standard, both really show the whole, what really happens, in the kitchen for the common mwananchi, the sugar and also the jiko. You really have to have the jiko so that you can prepare this tea, and you really have to have everything as cheap as it is. But then, even as you continue, these prices are really going to be hiking everywhere.
Yeah.
Flo.
Yeah, still on the Standard matters, cost of living. Kenyans begin to feel the heat of new taxes, from alcohol prices to cost of sending money using mobile platforms. Effects of the court decision on new taxes is beginning to be felt by all. That story is on page 4. And of course, the excise duty on fees charged for money transfer services by cellular phone services providers goes up, as announced by Safaricom on Friday. Then Fish Act introduces a 10% duty rate on imported fish and a new rate of 5 shillings per kilogram of imported sugar on chamas. The Act says income of members, clubs or trade associations will not be taxable. This is expected to hit chamas hard. That is Kenya. Also on the Standard, Kenya misses out on Russia grain deal. Quite interesting there, following our conspicuous missing in the Russia-African summit. Perhaps those are some of the goodies that the African leaders got from that specific summit. And also farmers expect bumper maize harvest. Quite some good news there. That is pretty much what we have on the front page of the Standard this morning.
Yes, let's take a look at the People Daily this morning. On the People Daily, the front page, split over Ruto-Raila talks as key allies dig in. On the elusive dialogue, efforts by Nigerian ex-President Obasanjo rebuffed by Kenya Kwanza leaders, even as Azimio hardened their stance on issues to be discussed, threatened more protests. Wow, yes, just the disagreement over what exactly the talks should address, also headlining on the front page of the People Daily. Still on the People Daily, queries about Koome silence on detentions. Lawyers and court users sound the alarm of a long period spent by individuals before their bails are processed by judiciary officials. And on the front top strip of the same daily, Korea's big delegation sparks new travel rules. Public Service Chief directs that officers should not exceed 45 days of travel in a year and will not have a team of more than 3 members. Wow, this will really change the game.
This is interesting because by now, as I think there's some who have already traveled for 45 days. So I don't know if that decision starts as from today.
Well, the good thing is that for the government, the year begins on July 1st. So
perfect.
Probably.
So basically, the Kenya Kwanza government is tunaanza upya.
But I remember seeing when Moses Kuria, the CS for Trade and Investments, when he went to the US and he was running, I think he had run late for...
Oh, no, he was catching the train.
Yeah, for his train. Yes. And he had a big team already running along with him. Yes. I think he's one of the most traveled CSs since President Ruto took over. And according to People Daily, this one will hit Moses Kuria hardest.
And speaking of heating,
he would argue as he has traveled as much, and you could see the results from his travels.
Once the president speaks, that's it.
Yes.
Well, speaking of heating, the Star says the fresh hurdles hit Ruto-Raila talks. Still in the same matters, the whole rebirth of the bipartisan talks. Away from that, matters the Haji succession, which is on page 6. Big name slug it out as interviews for DPP begin. As interviews for DPP start tomorrow, the question in many people's minds is whether the panel will settle on an old hand or one who is fresh in the field. 15 candidates have been shortlisted for the interviews that will run tomorrow and Wednesday. The candidates are some notable names in the legal profession. And away from that, on the top strip, no surrender. Senator Mtata to challenge Court of Appeals Finance Act 2023 verdict. That is on page 7 of the Star this morning. And an interesting one here by the one and only Bill Gates. He says, let's invest in Africa's young. You can read that on page 16. That is what I have on the Star this morning.
So all the headlines so far are in tandem with our top story.
Yeah.
Probably a look at Taifa Leo. Taifa Leo, Raila aruka mitego, Azimio yakana agenda ya Kenya Kwanza ikishikilia kujadili gharama ya juu ya maisha. Yes, same theme as well. Licha kuafikiana kuketi kitako na Rais William Ruto kujadili masuala yanayozonga nchi, Raila hepa mtego wa Kenya Kwanza kumsawiri kama mtu anayelenga tu kupigania nafasi itakayomfaidi kama mtu binafsi. Well,
very interesting.
Yes, you may have understood that Kiswahili, but at least this one is a bit palatable. That is the front page of the...
and we have not even dived into Mwananchi Leo yet.
No, not yet. So that's the front page of Taifa Leo this morning.
Still on Taifa Leo, I think there's an interesting one there as well. Linturi atangaza bei mpya ya mbolea. Sasa mfuko wa DAP sasa utauzwa kwa shilingi 2,500. Yeah. Seems like the promises are now matching with what was said during the campaign period.
Remember, among the one of the main promises by President William Ruto in as far as dealing with the cost of living, he said he will not subsidize consumption, but he will subsidize production by ensuring that fertilizer is affordable and available to all farmers. And yeah, I think the Agriculture Minister or CS is just following suit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's Taifa Leo.
Yeah.
We take a look at another one, Business Daily.
How 72 billion Kenyan shillings cash inflow put Kenya on dirty money watch. That is on the front page of the Business Daily. Okay, so just a brief on that is Watchdog falls Kenya's fight against illicit cash. Agency flags large cross-border hard cash movements. And from that, still on the matters, flying, more trouble for KQ as Ethiopia Fly Dubai allowed more flights. Okay, and on the top bit there says, the Nigerians, now this is a quote, the Nigerians, quote unquote, have brought Singaporean expertise into the country to help them build a world-class trading zone. That is on the Business Daily. Mm-hmm. You can take a look at Habari Leo also and cross the borders. Majaliwa, Tanzania ipo kimkakati biashara.
Majaliwa, the name of a person.
At this point, Majaliwa, we do know Majaliwa is the name of a person. I feel like I really should know who this Majaliwa is and just get to understand what is Majaliwa and what Majaliwa really says. Okay, Majaliwa, I was looking for it.
Majaliwa says Tanzania ipo kimkakati biashara, yafanya vizuri ukuaji uchumi Afrika.
Yes.
Wow. You see the difference between Taifa Leo, the Swahili on Taifa Leo, and the Swahili being used across the border. Well, Taifa Leo, you may have thought that it was a bit tough, but at least you could understand what they're talking about. This one, Majaliwa, already, if you didn't know it was someone's name, that would throw you off.
Mm-hmm. And also on Habari Leo, rather, Kinana amsifu Samia utendaji mawaziri vijana.
Mm-hmm.
All right, hopefully we do see that in Kenya. Utendaji mawaziri vijana katika nchi Kenya, appointing young and fresh bloods in the ministries. Even as you remember, Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi had hinted on a reshuffle of the cabinet, last week. Yeah. So hopefully we do really get to see some young blood.
I can see on the screen we have another paper. Which one is that?
I believe that is maybe that should. Oh, that should be Habari. Okay.
Well, I think we had a different paper here.
Right. Yes. Moving on. Which other paper do you have there?
I think that's it for now. Do we have any other?
All right. Time is really. I think now it is time to get into
Favorite section.
A quick check into the cartoon section, and our director, you can start with us on if you have the Standard for us. The Standard is on page 14, and for the Daily Nation, you can take a look at it on page. Which page is it today? On page 13, the Daily Nation on page 13. So, which one should we start with? Okay, let me start with the Standard this morning. Page 14 of the Standard, a caricature that depicts a huge man that the Standard gives us a hint is Goliath, and sitting on his lap is someone who the caricature looks like Ndi. So it tells us David versus Goliath 2023. So that is David Ndi, economic advisor to President William Ruto. And he says, listen, Goliath, cut me some slack here. I'm trying to revive the economy. So the huge man, which depicts Goliath, is wearing a belt written corruption. So this is indeed really, maybe he's tried to fight Goliath, the biblical way. But right now, for him, it's another bipartisan talks with, David and Goliath, and he's like, I've tried to fight you, but please. And for the Daily Nation, I believe this is a caricature that looks like the former president, is it Obasanjo? Obasanjo, yes. And he has carrying a loaf of bread, and there are some sweets there set. I believe he's preparing maybe a feast or something, maybe a dinner party, whatever you like to call it, whatever you like to see it. And outside there are a number of people which would believe are the common Monanchi, holding placards written Unga. Mm-hmm. So again, our question of the day today, what are these Kenyans really feeling? Fred and Flo, which one makes it for you this morning?
I think it's Daily Nation for me, because here comes a visitor with a very big loaf of bread, but outside it's millions of Kenyans, leaders, and the other side, I assume it's a section of Kenyans. Leaders from this side, they want a cut from that loaf, and Olusegun has to figure out how to, so clearly shows this is about, on this, this should be the left side, yeah? The left side is what I assume is leaders. On the other side, they are Kenyans who are saying Unga, probably talking about the cost of living. Yeah. But on this other side, we do have leaders who want a cut from the loaf of bread that we have. So really, it shows what we saw from the joint statement. It's more of fighting for themselves other than Kenyans. And here on the other side, we have very aggregated Kenyans who want the cost of living to come down, but we can only wait and see the magic that Olusegun will perform.
Today for me, I think I'll go with the Standard.
Okay, an interesting. I thought you'd really go for Daily Nation.
Attempts at reviving the economy being hampered by corruption, the giant of corruption. Hence you have David versus Goliath, that yes, there may be the intention to fight corruption, to revive the economy, but to the giant of corruption ever so present, it may not be as easy as we may imagine. And those are the dailies this morning.
Most definitely. I think I'd go for both of them. Today I'm split because I feel like this should even be a joint one, because this shouldn't, whatever Ndi is trying to fight here, the fight against corruption should also be discussed at this particular table where Obasanjo is, having this loaf of bread.
Okay. And yes, that is what we're looking at this morning. And our question this morning, remember, what would you want to see discussed in the dialogue between Azimio Coalition and Kenya Kwanza? At TV47 News is our handle on X. You can text us on 22047. You can also send us your feedback on Facebook. TV47 Kenya is a page. And I'm busy tweeting here about the next discussion. We're privileged to be hosting the Honorable Robert Alai MCA Kilelesho Award. On my panel this morning, Daniel Orogo, governance analyst, and Honorable Sandy Oyolo, Kenya Kwanza Western Region Coordinator. We'll be discussing all these top stories with them after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Good morning.
Close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victory, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for. That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Muyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the home of Untold Stories.
Katika majengo haya, hapa ndipo sheria zinapotungwa na zinapopakuliwa. Nitakuletea viongozi mbalimbali, mirengo mbalimbali, wote kwa pamoja wakipika na kupakua. Tutawapa nafasi kuweza kuangazia changamoto na mafanikio ya ugatuzi katika ukumbi wa siasa kila siku ya Jumanne kuanzia saa 1 kamili na kuendelea.
Toka eneo hili la Naivasha kwenye kaunti 032, gatuzi la Nakuru.
Toka kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, kaunti 028.
Nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Wajir.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Turukana. Kwa matukio yote yanayojiri katika kaunti hii 012.
Kutoka kaunti nambari 1, kaunti ya Mombasa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Lamu.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka Kisii County.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Machakos.
Kutoka kaunti hii ya Trans Nzoia.
Kaunti 038.
Kutoka gatuzi nambari 029, kaunti ya Nandi, chemichemi ya mabingwa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Kakamega.
Nitakuwa nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Bungoma.
Jina langu ni Paula Munio.
Willy Dennis Jiru.
Fabian Kibet.
Mimi ni Hashim Jimal.
Mimi ni Kitio Mika Masai.
John Javakiania.
Jina langu ni Abdulaziz Nameka.
Mimi ni Kombo Alfayo.
Jina langu ni Nicholas Mbai.
Isaac Famba.
Mimi ni Wanji Sosti.
Jina langu ni Arnold Adidi.
Jina langu ni Chris Bet.
Jina langu ni Violet Auma.
Na TV47 inapotamba, mimi Sheila Chelangat nitakuwa nikiripotia maswala yanayokuhusu wewe kila kuchao. Every Thursday 7:30 p.m. unapata nafasi kufahamu viongozi mbalimbali kutoka humu nchini, kuanzia wabunge.
Through Changa we could get money to pay our rent, to pay our bills.
When I was growing up, water was a problem where I was born and bred. We wake up at 3 to go and look for water.
Magavana
must be ready to be a tough woman and not a woman to be walked over.
Kwa hivyo
you respect people.
Ndani ya Mfahamu Kiongozi, story na historia, na mi Elizabeth Muchuku.
Kwa mirindimo kemkem ya michezo, mahojiano ya kipekee na mabingwa wetu, makala ya kuvutia pamoja na matukio mubashara viwanjani. Shabiki, tutapiga mbizi katika kila kiwanja, ndani na hata nje ya nchi. Mtazamaji, uko tayari? Ni kazi michezoni ama michezo kazini? Ungana nami Ahmed Bahaj, sajili mpya nimefika katika kipindi cha kipekee Mchaka Mchaka. Zitatoka cheche, tutapiga mstari chini yake. Si bora michezo, ni michezo kwa ubora wake. Mcheche
we've anticipated for quite a while now. I look at all the dailies, it's about the cost of living. Dear Sugar, Hustler agenda takes back seat as talks begin. Ruto Raila clash on talks agenda, the issue of cost of living is there. Look at the Star, the same. People Daily and Taifa Leo as well. But let's start with you, Robert Alai, because I've just been going through your Twitter. Your ex and your ex and your exes of late are very interesting because
you guys have to specify what an ex is.
Elon Musk's ex.
Ex, yeah.
Yes, you know. And you've been issuing some very interesting messages on X. One, you say, I believe that President Uhuru and Rigathi Gachagua have the same political mission. Why? You'll explain to us. The other one here, I'm looking at one where you're saying, if the cost of living isn't part of the negotiations, me and Babu Owino will demand that we have a parallel initiative which is away from this Kalongo Longo. And we start from there because you are part of the Azimio coalition.
Yes,
and being in Nairobi, I'm sure you get a chance to have a tete-a-tete with the leadership of that coalition. But you seem to be disagreeing a lot with their latest moves. Why is it so?
No, thank you, Fred, for having us here. I think that we are fighting for the wrong things. I think the political parties need to focus on their key mission, which is to capture power. But now we seem to be going the route of being activists. Political parties are not activists. They're not civil society. You know, we need to find ways of rebuilding ourselves, re-energizing the party, making the party ready for 2027, and also ensuring that, you know, we keep the government in tows, but also still stay within the mission of the political parties. I think that now that we are so focused, we are being blinded. You know, you see us, UDA is rebuilding, it's recruiting new members, it's doing all these things, you know, putting a very energetic team of young leaders to prepare them for 2027. We are still blinded by the common, you know, the common issues, which are cross-cutting and which will never end. And sometimes when we go and say that we are going to fight for a certain thing, we never fight to the end. We started by a boycott.
Yes.
Where did the boycott end? Then again, we took at some point, we said that now we have left the boycott, now it's the cost of living. Then suddenly, when the talk started, from the list of the items which were indicated, there was no cost of living. You see? And these guys, you know, people, we have lost lives. You know, there are people injured. There are people in jail up to today. Us politicians are helping to rescue people who have been jailed because they come from our various political formations and they participated in this man-to-man. You know, we try to ensure that they get out. But now, when you see the list which is emerging from these talks and you say that, okay, is it that these people are detached from reality or what is happening with the country? You know, so that is what's surprising me, and I think that from both sides, we have agents who are, their mission is not cost of living. Their mission is, I think, to ensure that President Uhuru Kenyatta, President Ruto, and Raila Odinga does not focus on their mission.
Okay.
Raila should be opposition leader. Ruto is the president, you see? But we have from both sides, people are going to keep us active because politics has become like a trade for some.
Yes.
Yes.
And you'll allow me, Daniel, to prosecute this issue for a while, because your dissatisfaction with the way Azimio has been handling issue has not started this week.
Yes.
Has not started even with the statement issued by the majority leader, the one that Azimio has already disowned. Even the handling of issues, even the way demonstrations were handled, you expressed some dissatisfaction. Even the change in tack when Azimio called for vigils and prayers instead of going back to the streets. And I'm wondering, what exactly is your problem with Azimio? Is it that the decisions are being made without involving the other leaders?
I don't think it's a problem with Azimio. I think that the problem is we are pulling too much weight, especially as in ODM. We are doing a lot of work for some members of Azimio who are doing nothing. You know, I don't think that it's fair for Honorable Martha Karua and, you know, her team to start making crazy demands when even her polling stream in our own village, she couldn't deliver 700 votes. You know, even if my whole village, leave alone my ethnicity, didn't want Fred Ndimuli, and I said I'm going to help Fred Ndimuli be the MCA of Onjiko Ahero ward, Onjiko Awasi ward in Nyando, I will deliver 700 votes. The president of the country, the most powerful person, could not deliver his own stream. But when we went for Mandawana, the first one, it was all about Oro. You know, farm raised, you know, some few trees here destroyed, sheep which you can't account for. Second one, Chama inaenda. My party is being taken over. It was all about him.
So you feel ODM is carrying all the weight for Azimio?
We are carrying the weight for not only Azimio. I think we are doing the work for President Uhuru. President Uhuru has a problem with President Ruto. They need to solve their problems. You know, as in ODM, we need to be so military focused on what is for 2027. What are we going to do about party recruitment of members? Because I believe that if we leave things as they are now, in another 3 months, UDA will have more members than ODM in most of the ODM strongholds.
So now I get you, if I get you right, you're more concerned about the position of ODM as a party within the Azimio, the larger Azimio coalition, and the future of this party after all this is done away with. Okay, let's now come back and discuss the biggest discussion, the biggest topic today, and it's about the cost of living. Of course, on two fronts. One, on whether or not that will form the agenda of any talks. Secondly, the fact that the government now has begun implementing the Finance Act after the courts lifted that conservatory order that had been issued against the same. You see the headline on the front page of the Daily Nation, Dear Sugar. This is also shocking. 2 kilogram pack of sugar now retailing at 490 shillings. And you see from as low as 155 shillings for a kilo in January to 260 for a kilo in July. That means actually 2 kilos here would be over 500 bob. The fact that the cost of living, people are wondering whether or not this will actually form the agenda of the talks. Surely, was there ever a question about that?
Good morning, friends, and good morning, viewers. Fred, thanks again for the invitation. We were here last set, and we were again delving into these questions of the talking agendas of the bipartisan talk that failed, the headline that was there, whether the country is united into matters that are pressing Kenyans most, or whether it's a political rhetoric. And it's confirmed. In the weekend, we were also treated by a press statement from one of the political affiliations that listed the agenda for the talks that resumed. I mean, you saw the press statement, the joint press statement that one of the political parties did not sign, allegedly did not put their signature, and you saw what was lined up for that conversation. Well, I think in the lining of what was supposed to be discussed or supposed to talk, you didn't see any issue about the cost of living there, or the prices of issue coming down, the prices of food, or even the taxes that would be levied as the Finance Act has already been authorized by the court to take effect. Let me confidently tell you, and I agree with the Honorable Robert Alai, that some of these conversations are so out of touch with the people. And you can see that there is a talk about resumption of the dialogue, and now, the new 10 members representing 5 from each and every Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. There's a conversation about reform of IBC and electoral processes. There is so much agenda that we miss the cost of living. I think, Fred, we are now at the mercy of the government, pending a decision that is, I think it should be on this Friday by the appellate court, I think, and I'm sure, the bench that was already assigned by the Chief Justice. But even though the High Court has already ruled out that given that lifted the stay orders that were suspending the the operations of Finance Act, there is temptation. There is an attempt by different factions to compel the executive to look at the contentious issues with the Finance Act. Even if the Finance Act cannot be, overhauled by the executive or the president, but I think there is a question of whether the president will be considerate in looking at the contentious, especially the VAT, the fuel levy, and look at it and probably begin to amend it if it's possible. But in the political cycles, I don't think it's given a priority.
Okay. Robert Alai, the president yesterday indicated that the cost of living is an issue that his government is already dealing with. An indication that he may not be keen to have it as part of the agenda. Yet, this is not the first time we're talking about the cost of living. The Finance Act that is now being discussed, even in the dailies, and how it will affect the common mwananchi, is something that was canvassed and even voted for in Parliament. The Azimio team were there. We saw how the kind of behavior during the voting day. Quite a number of members, even from the Azimio side, were not even present just to show their disapproval or to vote against it. Don't you think that already in itself already mirrored the fact that for politicians, the cost of living is not really an issue for them?
And I agree with the president that it should not be an issue for us politicians, because it should be an issue of the civil society. There are specific issues with the civil society should be dealing with, because you're seeing the political parties are not supposed to be for, you are not supposed to do activism, because I think that's what you're doing now in Azimio. You are so focused on, these issues which Kenyans voted for Kenya Kwanza. And the former president said he handed over power and Ruto is his president. He is a leading principle in Azimio. I think it is only fair for us to let Kenya Kwanza do the job. You see, we prepare for 2027. We hold them to account periodically, you see. But we cannot say that now we are going to be the activists on the street as a political formation until Kenya Kwanza does ABCD. I think we are focused on the wrong thing. These things should be the focus of other organizations, Katiba Institute, Kenya National Human Rights Commission.
Yet it was a whole premise for the Maandamano.
I think Maandamano, our main issue is IBC.
It was not it was never the cost of living.
This is what I believe should be, because political parties are about capture power. Then why are you focusing on cost of living? I think Kenyans were not identifying, because Kenyans have developed a mentality that whatever route you have used, you are in power. You see? So IBC might not have been very good to sell. So we bundled it up with, listen. So we bundled it up with cost of living.
Yes.
But I believe fairly that cost of living should be a civil society issue. It should not be a political party issue.
Well, yet the whole point of politics is to actually ensure that the common mwananchi gets what he deserves.
That's what I wanted to interject. I mean, Robert, the political party leader of Azimio has been in forefront, championing for these particular needs that have been mentioned here today. Yeah. And I remember in the initial stages when there was a quest to hold the government to account, one of the most talking issues was about the cost of living. And Robert, you remember when the leader of Azimio coalition and Right Honorable Raila Odinga was very categorical when he said that if there is no mention, and through the lieutenants, if there is no mention of the cost of living, there was not even an issue about people having a bipartisan talk. And I agree with you when you say that, in the initial stages, probably as agendas for conversation were aligned, the realization that if the cost of living was not among us the idea within the conversation, it was becoming unpopular with the people. when they were mentioning about IEBC, when they were mentioning about the server, when they were mentioning about issues of electoral reforms, Kenyans begin to question, Azimio, if they're really serious about the contentious issues that are affecting Kenyans. And therefore, the strategy was to run back and put in the high cost of living as an afterthought, but as one of the agendas to be discussed, even in the failed bipartisan talk. So probably, and I like that, Robert is very open about the ideal and the realistic bit of politics. But I think Kenyans would really question the Azimio coalition if they do not have any other agenda that really touches on the cost of the living. Because this probably Kenyans see it. And probably what might have made so many Kenyans come out on the street was probably the identification that Azimio coalition for the first time had mentioned an issue that touches boost, that really was in line with the demands of Kenyans. But you see, if it's lifted out of a conversation, then I think it's leading the coalition to a level where people will begin to question whether you're really serious with matters that are affecting Kenyans. And yesterday, to confirm that yesterday, looking at, and I don't know whether it was a political setup or was a smart move by the Kenya Kwanza and the statement that you see, that was signed by the leader of majority, in the realization that the cost of living was not part of the agenda, it brought about a backlash. And I could even see that, Honorable Wandai quickly made a rejoinder and said that if the cost of the living is not among us the idea and the agenda of conversation, that kind of dialogue or that kind of reconvening would not be meaningful. So I'm really surprised when Honorable Ali is saying that you see this cost of living should not have not been part of the political conversation.
And we want to understand if at all it's a general feeling within the Azimio coalition, the fact that it appears that it's an inconvenient truth, having to discuss this cost of living, even for the Azimio side, is a bit inconveniencing. Is it the general feeling among the leadership of Azimio that the cost of living only serves the purpose to get the public behind Azimio and not necessarily to boost their agenda, that they would rather discuss the more political issues like the reconstitution of IEBC?
I think that sorting the issue of the cost of living is not an instant, like not making instant coffee. So it's something which the leadership, from both sides are very much aware that whatever you do, even if Raila was in power today, you would not sort the issue of cost of living in an instantly. So it will take a period, 1 year, 2 years, for it to adjust and come to a level where everybody at least is feeling comfortable. Because, if we start fighting for cost of living and then you pull videos of 3 years ago, 1 year ago, our principles, justifying why the cost of living has to be high, why globally it is the same trend, I think that, and even some instance saying that we need to adjust, the level of earnings for our people, not fight about the cost of living. But I think that the feeling is we are pulling, especially for us in ODM, which is a major stakeholder there. The others are, we have ODM, we have Wiper, which is, I think,
a fraction of Jubilee.
No, it's much a very core principle there. Jubilee struggling in there, NAC just existing by name inside there. DAP Kenya at least has a substantial, hold with a good number of legislators inside there. I think we are doing heavy lifting for others who are not willing not only to invest their resources but also to invest their own time and power to ensure that Azimio succeed. I think that Azimio was supposed to be about winning an election. We didn't win that election. We disagreed, and I believe that we won, and we needed the server opened. The server is not the physical server. The server is the electoral process. We want to audit it. What did we do wrong? What did we do right? How can we improve on it? We are so focused on other things that by the time we get to 2027, we'll find ourselves exhausted, Kenya Kwanza ahead.
Yes.
We are blinded by a lot of things.
Robert, I hear you right, but 2027 is 4 years away.
4 years is not a long time.
In the meantime, there's the here and now. Yes. There's a Finance Act. Yes. We are seeing Okiya Omtata as a lone voice fighting this. Now he's already filed an appeal in court. You look at the papers today, and you can actually see a breakdown of how the Finance Act will affect you directly. Yes. Surely the Azimio side, if for nothing else, had the opportunity to actually challenge some of these provisions in Parliament.
And I think they tried. I think they tried. They fairly tried. The numbers and also the kind of games which Kenya Kwanza played in Parliament, made it almost impossible to beat them. Yeah. From the time the election results were declared, and they managed to rally up a very good number to their side. Even some who are legally still in Azimio voted with the ruling coalition and ensured that all that they wanted is able to be passed. And I think that we cannot blame, because even the game where we say that some of our MPs were missing was because of the schedule. The standing orders or the order paper was changed, and I think a good number of them were not aware. And when they came in for the next vote, which was now vote of the committee of the whole house, they found that they were not voting for other things. They were not voting for the.
I don't want to excuse the members of the National Assembly on this one, because it would appear whatever they did was half-hearted. Yeah. So all their talk about ensuring that the cost of living comes down has been half-hearted, at least from the Azimio side, and you're getting confirmation of the same today.
Yes, I like Honorable Robert Alai's, explanations as to why some of these MPs went missing. Fred, last time we had the privilege of, talking with one of the members of Parliament here, and Silvanus Osoro went public about it. We would not want to get into the intrigues. But of course, there's allegations that some members of Parliament were either, the dirty, according to Osoro, the dirty embarkment that, the government did to make sure that the finance, bill passes and ascended to be an act of Parliament. That was the intrigues of the Parliament. And the admission, and I agree how you're bringing up, the admission that the House in itself, if we had a functional, an ideal functional Parliament, or National Assembly to be very specific, some of these conversations that, escalates and gets to the street probably could have been dealt with a functional House. And yesterday, reading through a very nice, article that was done on The Nation, that even this conversation about bipartisan talk and the failure of the two political parties and the axis to resolve the matters could have been dealt with in the House if we had a functional Parliament, Senate, and the National Assembly. Some of these things that are boiling to the public could have been dealt with.
It was one of the best opportunities.
It was one of the best opportunity for members of Parliament. Yeah. And last time I put one of them to task, and I said, if we could have had a caucus of very objective members of Parliament that are, they are in different political functions, but would take a stand and look probably into the issues that are affecting Kenya without not being drawn into political extremes, we probably could have had a soft landing where most of the Kenyans would have, find a reprieve in the National Assembly and ask these caucuses to call to order their other members of Parliament to be very objective about matters that are affecting Kenyans. But we didn't have it.
Daniel, hold that thought there. We'll come back and discuss even the conduct of our leaders, elected leaders in the National Assembly. And because now it looks like politics will take precedence over anything else. Probably the Mwananchi thought that having people in the National Assembly would be of help. Definitely, it is not. You're watching Morning Cafe. We'll be back after the break.
The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for. That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Moyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the home of Untold Stories.
Katika majengo haya, hapa ndipo sheria zinapotungwa na zinapopakuliwa. Nitakuletea viongozi mbalimbali, mirengo mbalimbali, wote kwa pamoja wakipika na kupakua. Tutawapa nafasi kuweza kuangazia changamoto na mafanikio ya ugatuzi katika ukumbi wa siasa kila siku ya Jumanne kuanzia saa 1 kamili na kuendelea.
Toka eneo hili la Naivasha kwenye kaunti 032, gatuzi la Nakuru.
Kutoka kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, kaunti 028.
Nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Wajir.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Turukana.
Kwa matukio yote yanayojiri katika kaunti hii 012.
Kutoka kaunti nambari 1, kaunti ya Mombasa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Lamu.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka Kisii County.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Machakos.
Kutoka kaunti hii ya Trans Nzoia.
Kaunti 038.
Kutoka gatuzi nambari 029, kaunti ya Nandi, chemichemi ya mabingwa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Kakamega.
Itakuwa nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Bungoma.
Jina langu ni Paula Munio.
Willy Dennis Njiru.
Fabian Kibet.
Mimi ni Hashim Jimal.
Mimi ni Kitio Mika Masai.
John Javakiania.
Jina langu ni Abdulaziz Nameka.
Mimi ni Kombo Alfayo.
Jina langu ni Nicholas Mbai.
Isaac Famba.
Mimi ni Wanji Sosti.
Jina langu ni Arnold Adidi.
Jina langu ni Chris Bet.
Jina langu ni Violet Auma.
Na TV47 inapotamba, mimi Sheila Chelangat nitakuwa nikiripotia maswala yanayokuhusu wewe kila kuchao. Every Thursday 7:30 p.m. unapata nafasi kufahamu viongozi mbalimbali kutoka humu nchini, kuanzia wabunge.
Through Changa, we could get money to pay our rent, to pay our bills.
When I was growing up, water was a problem where I was born and bred. We wake up at 3 to go and look for water.
Magavana
must be ready to be a tough woman and not a woman to be walked over.
Kwa hivyo
you respect people.
Ndani ya Mfahamu Kiongozi, story na historia, na mi Elizabeth Muchuku.
At the heart of the agenda of the politicians. Clearly it is not, and you're getting confirmation of that they would rather discuss other issues, the more political issues for that matter. And back to you, Robert.
Yes.
Now, when we say that the cost of living will not necessarily be the issue, so what exactly would Azimio want to be discussed, apart from the IEBC issue that has always been there? Wouldn't it be counterproductive to focus on the IEBC and leave out the fact that the cost of living, which was a main issue for members of the public, some who even lost their lives while taking part in the protests? Don't you think it would be counterproductive even for Raila Odinga politically, if at all we decide that even we'd rather focus on the politics?
I think that we need to focus on the political problems as politicians. And because, you know, cost of living is an economic problem, and I believe that whoever was in power, it is a very challenging situation. It might not be solved instantly, so the only thing is that for us to be honest, we can say that we give you the goodwill. We believe that in the next 6-7 months, 1 year,
an open check,
yes,
what you want,
can you
works or not.
Yes.
Don't you think that will be ceding too much ground for the minority side to actually say, okay, fine, majority, you already have your way, so go ahead?
No, I think that they'll not sit pretty. Because, if we leave that space, somebody else will occupy it. Mm-hmm. And I told you, because now we are doing the work of the civil society, I believe that a very core issue, which is very unpopular, but still the main issue we must deal with, is the IBC. Mm-hmm. The reconstitution of IBC, the audit of the last election. If we don't do this within the first few months, especially the first 6 months, I think that time is not on our side in this regard. We must audit the electoral process. Mm-hmm. Because what makes this country stable in a very unstable region is the fact that we can do elections every 5 years. So this election is what we need to perfect. That whoever, because now they're saying that Raila is the problem. The Kenya Kwanza is saying that Raila is the problem. But maybe if you bring somebody else, this country will go into an ethnic clash. You see, people will fight, people will take up arms, because the winner would not be very good in convincing the loser that he actually won.
But the question is now, how do you suggest that Azimio handles the uproar that we've seen coming from the fact that the cost of living may not be necessarily the part of the main agenda?
I think that, if we went the roots, what we started with the BBI, something which Kenyans didn't understand. It was a very complex thing. But in the long run, even if we were stopped by the courts and stopped on our tracks, it has gained a lot of foothold among Kenyans. I think the traction it got is because of these barazas we held. We have to go the baraza way. We should have gone that way and say that we are explaining to Kenyans why IBC is a very important institution, which cannot be left for the president alone to reconstitute its leadership, and also for the president to say that election is over. It should be left for an independent organization, locally or internationally, to declare to us that the election you did was above reproach, so as to assure us. Because, I also believe that these people didn't win fairly. But what recourse do I have? You see, if the person in my coalition, a leading person, every time we go for Mandamano, he says, Raila is my president. But when he sits and does interview with the media, he claims, Ruto is my president. You see, those double talks is very confusing to me. Okay. You see, so let's audit this and say, okay, we are claiming we won. This is how guys you convince us that you won. You see, but now we ensure that after 5 years it doesn't recur. But in the meantime, we rebuild ourselves for 2027. Because what I think Kenya Kwanza loves our protest more than anybody else. Because it makes us not rejuvenate our party. We are not targeting the young voters. We are not identifying with them. Some of our messaging is now off. If we don't put cost of living and the few instances, issues here and there, if you have lost the discussion.
If you were asked, you'd rather ODM withdraws from the Azimio coalition at this point and focuses on the party.
Now even if you go to all those podiums, you don't see brand ODM.
ODM is getting lost in there.
ODM is getting lost.
Yes.
Jubilee made us lose almost 30-something seats in this city. If we didn't partner with Jubilee and zone out some areas, ODM alone would be having more than 60 seats.
Wow.
In Nairobi County Assembly.
Okay.
Now we only have...
Robert Elai is defending his party, and rightly so. But the issue of leadership, political leadership, because we have a crisis, the cost of living is what people are really worried about. The common mwananchi may not really be worried about the reconstitution of the IEBC at this point. That could come much later. And we are looking at the political leadership to help us from this get out of this quagmire. But you're not getting there yet, because both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio appear not very keen on this issue. Don't you think that that is where we lost the plot?
I mean,
that you're doing politics for the sake of it.
It will not be. It will not be in the interest of political parties, and to, it appears that was not the interest, and that confirmed by Honorable Alai, and it's political. That the interest to deal with the high cost of living is not converging for both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. if that would be converging, then it would have been given a priority, in the sense that Azimio would want a conversation that leads to political relevance, and like Honorable has just mentioned, that these political undertakings would spur certain political parties to prepare and be relevant in the quest of power in 2027. But high cost of living, no. I mean, like I've said, it was an afterthought because Kenyans were in uproar. Why they didn't see it listed? It is not a coincidence that it has not appeared in the conversations again over this weekend. So I am looking at the issues that are listed in the reconstitution of Independent Electoral Commission, the implementation of 2/3 gender rule, and the establishment of Constituency Development Fund. Can you imagine? That is appearing as listed in a national talk that should be held. And also the embedment of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. You see, these are matters that are listed by Kenya Kwanza side, that to them, these are pressing needs, that Kenyans should be compelled to have a conversation on. No cost of living. That is the side of Kenya Kwanza, according to the dailies. And Azimio side, the same. Of course, I think that they mentioned the escalating cost of living, inclusivity, audit of 2022 general election, as Mheshimiwa has just talked about, accountability and responsibility, brutality of the police, to hold those to account, and respect for autonomy of independent political parties. Probably mentioning, the onslaught on the Jubilee Party. But Fred, I mean, the press statement and the confirmation, the cost of living is out of questions. Kenya Kwanza side of government are focusing on embedding the position of Prime Cabinet Secretary and on 2/3 gender rule, and on looking on other issues. The discussion is, and that statement says, that the cost of living is a sub judice. It's in court. It cannot be discussed on a dialogue. That is according to the statement that the Azimio did not sign. In other terms, coming back to what you're asking me, do we have to call the independent people and the people that are sitting in the panel of the wise at the AU, right, to begin conversing about the independence of commission, to begin a conversation about 2/3 gender rule that Obasanjo is leading, to begin a conversation about the most things that are not affecting this country? Yet we have a third arm of the government that is on parliament, that should be independent, that should have a conversation on matters that we are listing, and now getting into the hands.
Daniel Orogo, I think we were in agreement with you the last time we were having this discussion, that when it comes to the National Assembly, we failed totally.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. That is where we are. That is why we are calling for an independent.
Why did you fail?
And we are calling for Honorable Chief Olusegun Obasanjo to have a conversation. We are inviting Samia Suluhu. We have invited Cyril Ramaphosa. We've invited other people to come and have this conversation on these issues that we mentioned. Are we fair to the Republic?
Okay, and the Honorable Sunday Oyolo, Kenya Kwanza Western Region Coordinator, will be joining the panel shortly. But before he does that, Robert Alai, they say in politics nothing happens by coincidence. And probably what we are thinking that Azimio, it just escaped their mind that the cost of living should have been important, that it's actually by design, not necessarily by default, that actually it is good politics for them. The fact that, fine, the cost of living is high under the administration of William Ruto. It is good politics for Azimio, and probably they would want that to sustain until 2027. It would make it a better argument during the campaigns.
I think Azimio doesn't want the cost of living to be high for us to have good politics or a chance to engage Kenya Kwanza. I think there are a lot of issues. If you asked me, the first issue would be IBC. The second issue would be on the devolution, entrenchment of devolution. And the issues we have been fighting for as MCAs to ensure that we empower the devolved units. We separate the accounts of the assemblies from the accounts of the executive. We ensure that for us in the assemblies, we oversight the governor, but the governor has to assign my salary every month. If you don't store to their line, they ensure that you don't get your salary. We ensure that we empower these offices for the MCAs, because you have been given you're expected to do a lot, especially in the cities. The most important person to you in the cities is not the MP but the MCs, because of, you need comfort, you need order, you need clean markets, you need good roads. These are done by the MCs and the governor. But you don't empower the MCs. You don't focus on how they get to power. You don't have ward development fund. If the ward development fund is, you don't get a legal, statute allocating the percentage which is supposed to be gotten for every ward. Sometimes it depends on how much, you praise the governor of the day. And I think it's very wrong for devolution. So I think what we need as politicians is to focus on the political problems.
Okay.
And cost of living is an economical problem, and might not be very. It is good for the soundbite. It's very popular with Wananchi, but we need to tell Wananchi why political parties need to deal with the structures of our politics and not the issue of the civil society. Like Oyolo, is an active.
Before I even introduce Oyolo to the panel, there's a quote here by Ernest Ben. Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it whether it exists or not, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedy. It appears that this is actually what is happening here. The Honorable Sunday Oyolo, Kenya Kwanza Western Region Coordinator, has joined the panel. Karibu sana. It's good to have you here. We've just been discussing the issue of the cost of living and the fact that it appears that conveniently, both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio too might not want it to be the main agenda of the talks. And I'd put it to Robert Alai that it's good politics for Azimio, if at all. The issue of the cost of living is not addressed by the William Ruto administration, that it would be a win for Azimio and give them something to talk about in 2027. Because if you look at the list, it's basically, from that statement by Kimani Ichung'wah, it is basically the suggestions that William Ruto gave in his memorandum to the Houses of Parliament, the changes he'd like to see. That is basically what they're going to talk about.
Thank you, Indemili. Well, what we must know is that the issue of food security, or what they are calling cost of living, is not actually the main issue.
It's not the issue at all.
Actually, it's not even the issue. If you look at the issues that were listed, those are the issues at the core. Cost of living is a moving target. For example, the other day we didn't have food. We didn't have maize, we didn't have what. You and I are from the village, and we know that right now there's food everywhere. Maize in Makunga, where I come from, where we come from, is now dropped up to 120 per 2 kg. Tin, and it's going to be even lower. Well, the harvesting is all over. In fact, right now we are starting to talk about where do we sell the maize, and the prices for maize for our farmers. This is now the next. So when these guys were putting on sufurias on their heads, we were picking the fertilizer and planting. Right now there's food. Secondly, we are now on the second phase of fertilizer, which has now dropped from 3,500 to now 2,500. The Secretary General of the party, Malala, and the governors of Kisii, governor of Vihiga, governor of, on most of these other places, governor of Kakamega, they've been out. Even in Busia, you saw with Otuoma, distributing now the 2,500 worth of fertilizer for the second short seasons, short season rains. What am I saying? I'm saying food living standards was not the issue. The issue we know is what do we do with Raila after every election. And after 1997 election, Moi had to find him a place. After 2002 election, Kibaki had to find him a place. After 2013 election, Uhuru had to find him a place. Now, after 2022 election, Ruto is being forced to find him a place. The problem in this country is of one person. If it is cost of living, why do we need Ramaphosa? Ramaphosa is living his streets in Joburg and everywhere, in riots and demos of led by the Malema. Why should he not sort out those problems and come here to sort our problem of food? If it is Mzee Obasanjo, there is the last week, Nigeria experienced the first highest hike of petrol on the pumps. Why shouldn't he finish his problems first of all in Nigeria to come and sort out our problem of food? Okay. It's not about food.
If I hear you right, because Oyolo, you're equating the cost of food and the cost of living as it being one and the same. Yet we are looking at the government beginning to implement the Finance Act this week, actually, after the court lifted the conservatory orders on Friday. That changes a lot. Whether or not our harvest we'll get bumper harvests, the 16% VAT on fuel takes effect immediately. Other issues do take effect. The housing levy will start being deducted. Daniel, don't you think that probably we are getting it wrong by just looking at bumper harvests that we expect will come either way?
I like the ones that Honorable Alai and my colleague just mentioned. Some of these are good for the bites. The problem we're having is that the choice of what is good for the bites, and like you said, this issue about we are harvesting, the fertilizers are being distributed, and everyone is getting a fertilizer. But on one end, you just quoted, within less than 7 months, the prices of basic commodities have shot. We have a problem of extreme explanations, and this is the issue that we are having. That on one hand, the discussion about mashinani and people getting fertilizers and bumper harvest, which we are yet to see. But on the other hand, there is a message on the media about the cost of living shooting so high within less than, the high taxes. So Mwananchi is left on the masses of extreme explanations about, their economic, stance at that point as to whether the minimal explanation, if there is progress, if there is economic progress. But also, Fred, when we sit in the panel sometimes, I call upon sobriety and objectivity when we are conversing some things. It is the problem we struggled with in the last set. The personalization of the problems we have in the country. That one particular individual is always responsible for the problems we are having in this country. I think sometimes we are not fair to the process. And last time I also told Mheshimiwa on this side, I said, by the fact that we sit and apportion blame and personalize individuals, if we as a country begin to go to that direction and looking at the profiles of people, we will begin to ask some people, where were you in 1990s? What were you doing when people are rising up to champion for democratic forces? If we begin going that way, then we can go full scale, and Kenya will not benefit. And the blame I'll give you an opportunity. You're just so fair. So when we begin to look at profiles and question, then we will take that route, which will not be beneficial for most of us. But the question that you mentioned is on conversation. The problem we have in this country is not an individual. It's on our governance systems. I keep on saying. Okay. You've mentioned the leadership in the parliament. We've mentioned the leadership in the Senate. We've mentioned the executive trying to gag the judiciary and the parliament. This is within the...
I'll allow you... let me imagine, my brother. You know what we must explain. By the way, this must not escape us, that actually Raila did his contribution alongside other heroes of this country. Kenyans owe Raila nothing. We do not have to have one name appearing all the way. And I have mentioned from 1987, it seems like this country owes him. Okay. We owe, the way we owed Matiba, we owed Rubia, we owed Abuya, we owed Martin Shikuku. It doesn't have to. This country has issues. We accept. The issues of food, like when I was coming in, and the cost of living, my brother mentioned that even the same Raila Odinga told us to keep quiet then. He told us it was not a reason to go to the street. We know that the world and the country in particular is still emerging from the effects of COVID-19. That is sure. We know that the effects of Ukraine and Russia is hurting all over the country. Recession is all over the country. I mean, all over the world. We can't dig our heads in the sand and say that we are an exception. Okay. And that's why we are saying
we're leaving out the Honorable Alai from this conversation, and I want him to come back to this because when
I'm trying to see, you know, Sunday. You know, the politics of this country is structured in a very wrong way. It's a cult of personalities. We have been made to believe that when you are on Ruto's side, the only thing you have to do is not talk about the issues, talk about attack Raila. Then you're on Raila's side, you just have to attack Ruto to be relevant. Can we move away from that? Because we have better brains. And you know, there's nowhere where Honorable Raila has asked for payment or compensation or recognition that he did this or that. If you were to meet the only selfless politician, if he was selfish, I tell you this country would be fighting now. Because what we have done, this thing we call the audit of the electoral process, people take it as a joke. But it's very important because you don't know who will be the contestant tomorrow. What kind of a personality he'll be. You know, we have lived with Raila for long, since the 1990s and up to now. So it's somebody these people understand. And they know that he's very selfless. So, but we need to focus on the issues at hand. And the issues at hand is that we need to better our governance structure. We need to make the laws better. We need to build on our institution. Even in Nairobi today, you find the governor has a minority. You see? Today, the ruling coalition is a minority. The 2010 constitution didn't envisage that. So the budget chairman, you'll find, comes from the majority. Because the constitution only imagined that the majority will win the leadership of the country or the county. So these are some of the things we need to address to ensure that we entrench our devolution, we make it better, our laws, if they have a problem A, B, C, D, we make it better. How do we challenge the Finance Act? How do we help Okiya Omtata? Because that's a political problem.
And that, according to you, should be top of the agenda.
It should be, the Finance Act should be up top of the agenda.
And we asked, what would you want to see discussed in the dialogue between Azimio Coalition and Kenya Kwanza? The politicians have spoken and the agenda is different. It is very clear. The reconstitution of the IEBC, two-thirds gender rule, and other things like the office of the official leader of opposition. But the cost of living is nowhere on that list so far. What would you want to see discussed in the dialogue between Azimio Coalition and Kenya Kwanza? At TV47 News on X, 22047, the short code. You can send a text there. You can also send your feedback on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Let's now get some feedback. My colleague Limuki is on standby. Over to you.
Well, let's sample in some feedback from Facebook. And I see concerning our question, which is what do you expect or would like to be discussed in the dialogue between the government and the opposition, that is between the two top political leaders. John Otsotsi says here, handshake is not an option. We don't want, yes, and Oyomboya says nothing meaningful. I'm sure this is another delay strategy to calm the political temperatures, albeit for a short time. It's going to flop when the streets are too tough to return to. Mukuga here says, by trying to discuss with Raila, we are trying to sanitize losers who will be using Mandamano as a way of being accommodated in the government. Last election, we had 6 elective posts, MCA, MP, women rep, senator, governor, and president. Why have a discussion only on presidential election and ignore the rest? Just another feedback here. Sharon Alvin, nothing, it's just buying time. The last time we had bipartisan talks, we don't know where they ended in. That is just some of the feedback from Facebook. And someone else here says, Manji, the way Azimio is pushing these talks, I'm doubting if this is the way Election Act should be removed from the Constitution. Of course, keep interacting with us at TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The question of the day is, what do you expect or would like to be discussed in the dialogue between the government and the opposition? The hashtag is Morning Cafe, and of course, we will be sampling some of this feedback, including I see so many reactions concerning the Kileleshwa's MCA's utterances here that ODM is doing a lot of work for some of the members of ODM who are doing nothing. I do not think it's fair for Mother Karua to start making demands when she couldn't deliver the votes in her own area. That is the words by the MCA Kileleshwa. Of course, be sampling some of the feedback here coming in from Kenyans concerning that specific words by Robert Alai, who is in studio with us this morning. But right now, I take it back to Fred.
Yes, thank you, Flora. Hashtag Morning Cafe, and Robert Alai, you appear like you would be getting into trouble with your coalition. But probably the question would be, or the issue should therefore be, isn't it, because you've been very honest and made a lot of admission, are we therefore seeing a scarcity of honesty or honest men, if I may say that, within the political class? That people should just come out and say, to be honest, the cost of living is not really an issue for us to discuss right now. Let's deal with the politics. Because I saw an admission by David D sometime earlier this year that in actually drawing parallels between this administration and the Mwai Kibaki one, they said that Kibaki failed because in his first term, because he failed to deal with the politics within the first year, and that cost him towards the end of his first term. And he was suggesting that William Ruto probably will deal with the politics within the first year. Don't you think that probably that's they should just come out and say, this is what we are doing. We'll deal with the politics, all the issues to do with the IBC reconstitution and other issues surrounding that, then we'll deal with the other things after that.
I think that, you know, we need to stop looking so much for honesty in politics, because politics by its own nature is not a game where you find a lot of honesty in it. But I think that when we have proper identification of the issues affecting the people, and also the people understand the politics, because, you know, we are trying sometimes at the national level to have a very complex conversation by people we have impoverished, by people who we have not empowered to understand politics well, by people who don't understand that, you know, when we have elected, you have said you've elected government A, don't look for an office for an individual you have not given the opportunity to lead, so that he'll be doing the work for you. You see, you elected Ruto. Swallow the bitter pill. This is the person you have. If you want a better life, we gave you an option. You see? So tell us, the only thing we are going to do is we are going to prepare to defeat him, so that he doesn't make you suffer beyond 2027. But now, the only thing we want you to do is to ensure that, apart from anything else, he doesn't do anything illegal. Anything outside the law. He doesn't kill anybody. He doesn't, you know, arrest you because you disagree with him. He doesn't do anything illegal. But he is the person in power, and he needs to be held accountable that he is doing ABCD, all those things, responsibilities. Not that when you keep quiet, when Raila asked for the presidency,
he didn't get it.
You see?
Okay.
So, and now you say that Raila has to come to be the official opposition leader. You know, the 2010 constitution brought in the minority leader. And the minority leader is politically the head of the opposition. You see? So the minority leader, we have a structure where the real head of the opposition is not actually elected.
Yeah.
Because we say for you to be president, you don't have to vie for any political seat. So he's not elected. So, but he's still very powerful. And that's why you see we are now looking for two people outside parliament to be sitting in the talks, to represent the principles. Because these people who are sitting now in the parliamentary-led talks, the ultimate decision maker is outside parliament.
Okay. And it appears that now we look set to focus on a review of the laws we have and not necessarily to deal with other issues that are more pressing to the common mwananchi. That the office of the leader of opposition, issues to do with IEBC reconstitution, which is already provided for in law. But it appears now it's that we are all with one mind looking forward to a relook at our laws.
Anyway, the issues that are on the table, rightfully, the issue of IEBC is rightfully on the table. We have many by-elections right now.
At least they admit.
I'm saying apart from these other issues that are being looked around, shopped for, like cost of living and what have you, those are window dressers. But the issue of IBC is rightfully on the table. Why? Because we have a lot of by-elections that must be done, must be conducted. We have people that are now not being represented. Like in Mandera, we lost a member of parliament. Like in Huisero, in Western, we lost an MC, and many others. That is an issue. We need to constitute the commission. And we are also like on a time bomb, because supposing anything happens today, and we don't have the commission well constituted, that must be dealt with. The issue of official opposition is an emerging issue. Of course, we are. We've done about 10 years since promulgation of our constitution. It is ripe time to also audit our document, surely. And we are realizing these are some of the things, like what Alai is saying. This is the leader. He is out of parliament. He is out of power. He has no official power. Like for me, how do I deal with Raila? So we need to officially bring him into the core so that he can deal, instead of calling people from the bipartisan discussion, wanaenda nje kwa choo kwanza kupokea simu. We don't want that. We want him to be at the center of things. The issue of 2/3 gender rule. We know Maraga told us that this parliament, even as it is constituted at the moment, it's illegal. So we need to deal with this issue once and for all. And this is the time, like you said, Dee said, we need to do this early in the term. The issue of entrenching the prime ministership, we have realized, even during Kibaki's time, even now, we are starting to realize there is a need. Even Azimio itself, it already had designated Kalonzo Musyoka as their de facto person
Chief
to come
Cabinet
in.
Secretary.
So we realize that these are issues that need to be addressed, and they can now not be postponed any further. It's the right time. It is also the right time to even look at our electoral system, the Elections Act. Some of us, and we have sat with Alai at some point, and we've said, why don't we just bite the bullet and overhaul the whole electoral system? Look at other systems that have worked. The South African system, the MMP, is it PR, proportional representation, or mixed proportional representation, where we have the whole. Why do we need all these constituency and wards? By the way, how many times are we going to delimit those wards and constituencies? This man, we just need to work out Nairobi and know the population. Right now, we are paying in some of the guys who are sitting with him in the city hall and are deciding my matters. I did not elect them. They are nominated. You find the number of the nominated is overwhelming the number of those that we have elected. In Kakamega, we have 60 wards. We have over almost 100 MCAs. Some of them, we don't know how they came in because of their beauty and their looks and their height.
It is a 2/3 gender rule and how the county assemblies chose to handle that. But now, it appears we've already moved on from the cost of living. I think from the politicians, we should ideally just move on.
And that is
Let's just agree to move on
that's the
from that.
saddest bit of it. And Alai said these are matters that will be left to civil society.
We'll invite the civil society to discuss. Politicians are no longer interested.
This is not a priority for politicians, but it's an issue. that really needs to be fast-tracked. We will not agree with the political class at some level that this is an issue that should just be wished away. There needs to be a level of fast-tracking the delivery agenda of the Kenya Kwanza. And all the political parties in their manifesto in the campaign highlighted on how they would deal with it, the cost of living. And in the talks, I mean, even on this press, I think there is some way when it say that, some of this cost of living are now a sub judice issue that is still within, the appellate courts to decide. That is a higher level of shortchanging the citizenry. But
who went to court?
I am also looking at it from a different level. Fred, I am seated here and just wondering that nothing happens. There's nothing that is coincidence. I mentioned to you that there is a press that was released and matters highlighted that would form the basis of conversation on the talk. You have it on your screen. Following up that, it seems that the political leaders are agreeing to have a dialogue, right? And that cannot be wished away. And since we are dealing with a political issue that needs to be resolved politically, it seems there is a conversation that has begun to take place or will take place. And it seems that this conversation is confined, to some level. It is not an open conversation. It is confined, again, to the political class, which means it is purely on a discussion on political issues. No mention of, economic issues, no mention of, illegal landmines that is ahead. And I would like to bring to your attention, the proposals that have been made, that there is needs to be a change on the Constitution to adjust because it's over 10 years and we need to have an amendment of the Constitution. That seems to be so. That the political leaders somehow are agreeing that of course we need a leader of opposition in parliament. That of course we need to fast-track 2/3 gender rule. That we need to discuss IEBC. May I also bring to your attention that the fact that some of the issues that are attributed to the failure of bipartisan talk was on that the members were not expected to discuss matters that are not constitutionally addressed, like the IEBC. That some factions of Kenya Kwanza disagreed with the talk, simply because Azimio requested for matters of IEBC to be fast-tracked. To them, they said that is a process on course and that is a constitution. How is it going to be dealt with again? Because it has been mentioned again as a point of conversation. Does it mean that we are still going? What was the contentious issue that failed for the bipartisan talk that has been brought back?
The issue on IBC, my brother is getting it wrong. Our problem, our point of departure was on the opening of the servers. For us, is like what my brother Lai has said. An election was conducted. It was petitioned. It went into the Supreme Court. It was ruled upon. And that subject is sealed and closed. If we ever open the servers, it will be an audit process that is naturally there between the five-year period. It usually is done, it's an internal process of IBC. That's where we are. The issue we agree upon is that there is a need to come up with a panel that is agreeable on both sides.
But there was already a panel.
Which ODM and Azimio refused. They refused to accept, even after it had gone through the whole processes, including being gazetted, with all the legal processes. But you see, the problem in this country, in Dimuli, is that we have a rule of exception. Allah doesn't want me to mention it. All laws must be an exception, a Raila exception. Even in these, in the laws that are, the process is stipulated under the law, but there has to be an exception if Raila accepts it.
Okay.
So that is the problem we have.
Robert, even as you respond to that, I'm just looking at the list in this statement issued by Kimani Ichung'wah, and I can tell that at least, apart from the reconstitution of IBC, all the other items there were exactly what the President suggested to the Houses of Parliament. The issue to do with the two-thirds gender rule, entrenchment of the CDF, establishment of the Office of the Leader of Opposition, amendment of the Office of Prime Cabinet Secretary. These were suggestions by the President in December in his memo to Parliament, apart from the reconstitution of IEBC. What else? And I know we've all agreed that cost of living, even if it's included here, will just be window dressing. So forget about it. What other agenda would the Azimio coalition want included on this list?
I think what President was doing there with his team from the majority side of Parliament is that he was playing politics. And you can see the inclusion of CDF there is supposed to whip up the MPs from both sides of the divide to ensure that they support the initiative of the President. The two-thirds general rule, at least the women, a very big caucus, is going to be behind it. It is generally politics. The President needs to be honest about what really affects it. Can we discuss this 2010 Constitution? Do we need to change it or not to change it? Because even he has suggested we change it. You know, he's looking for the office of the official opposition leader, which is going against the Constitution. You see? He's trying to change the Constitution through the back door, and he said that you don't need to change the Constitution.
Are you saying that all these things were already there in the BBI, so you're comfortable with the raft of ideas that have already been listed there? It's only that they had left out the IEBC.
Yes, but you know, the President needs to go beyond the MPs, you know, because he's trying to empower the MPs. But we are in a devolved structure of leadership, and you need to entrench devolution. Now we have governors. The President started well with automating the financial side, the revenue collection, but there's a non-revenue which is not automated. You go to many of these counties, HR, accounting, what is not automated at all. People are still, some counties you're still paying people for box manually. You see?
We would like to take a short break and go live to this event happening right now at the Nairobi Serena, where the ICT and Digital Economy, Broadcasting and Telecom CS, Eli Dowalo, is presiding over the one-year status report on ICT and Digital Economy. Let's get to hear what's happening there, and we'll be back with this discussion.
Training for free as government, we will also go a step further and identify the jobs for our youth, or link our youth to the job market. This initiative, ladies and gentlemen, has got the potential of creating about 1 million jobs for our youth. Each digital hub can create instantly 300 jobs. If we have got one digital hub in each ward, on average, each constituency has got 5 wards. So that means in each constituency, we have got the potential of creating 1,500 jobs. So as opposed to a situation where the youth are migrating to Nairobi or other towns for that matter in search of jobs, we will create the jobs right there in the village. And this is one of the means through which as government, we are going to stem or alleviate rural-urban migration. If anything, we will be having urban-rural migration as far as the youth are concerned in search of jobs. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, our target was to create or to establish 290 hubs annually. As we speak, I'm happy to report that we have already met the threshold of 174 digital laboratories, ladies and gentlemen. The county governments have also accepted to bring to the table the hitherto polytechnics, which are actually currently underutilized. We want to set up an additional digital laboratories within the polytechnics. The county governments accepted to make them ready for this purpose. And again, in the same vein, we will establish the laboratories, we will deploy the devices, undertake the training within those laboratories, ladies and gentlemen. The next thing is the digitalization of government services. At the very beginning of our term, if you can remember, the government did state at the highest echelons by none other than His Excellency the President himself, that by June this year, end of June this year, we shall have digitalized a minimum of 5,000 services. The rationale for this, ladies and gentlemen, is to ensure that most government services are available on technological platforms. This will facilitate efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery. We have so far surpassed that target, as at 31st, we managed to have fully digitalized a total of 5,084 services. And we had an official launch for this purpose. But we have gone a step further and also identified a total of 9,362 services, government services, that can possibly be digitalized. Our proposition, ladies and gentlemen, is that by the end of the year, all the government services shall have been digitalized. As we speak, over and above the 5,084, which we are digitalized as end of June, we have partially digitalized another 2,550. As we speak, there's fundamental work in progress in finalization of the digitalization of those additional 2,500. So for purposes of clarity, let me give you the comfort that the target of fully digitalizing government services by the end of the year is realistic and achievable. If anything, we will attain it. When we took over government, and by extension the e-citizen platform, we only had a meager 350 services aboard the e-citizen platform, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a major milestone for government. And in terms of prioritization, I'm also happy to report that we have targeted in the initial stages those sectors of the Kenyan economy that are very, very critical for service delivery from government. So we have targeted the Ministry of Health in line with our universal health coverage agenda. We have targeted the Ministry of Lands, more so the lands registry, so that we unlock the potential of what has been clogged in there. The Kenya Revenue Authority. Now, leveraging on this technology, we'll be able to bring in more people into the tax bracket. And we are perhaps able to collect the same level of revenue, tax revenue, at the current fiscal rates of fiscal, without tweaking the fiscal policies. Then transport, e-transport is another area of focus. Education, we want to go the route of e-learning. We no longer need the four walls of a classroom in the era of today to pursue education. That's another area of focus. Then border control, then citizen services, issues to do with passport. And then, of course, the cabinet. We have already also achieved fundamental results in that regard. Allow me now to go to the area of digital skills and correspondingly digital jobs, because the two are like Siamese twins. Again, as a ministry, ladies and gentlemen, we have embarked on two major programs: the Ajira program, which has been ongoing, and the Jitume program, which we have newly introduced. We have managed, through stakeholder alliances and partnerships, ladies and gentlemen, to secure a donation of 23,000 digital devices for deployment for purposes of digital skilling. And our intention in this regard, ladies and gentlemen, is to utilize these devices to have a critical mass of Kenyans acquire optimal levels of ICT skills and also empower our youth for jobs. We have gone ahead, ladies and gentlemen, to deploy these devices in 77 TVETs, a total of 6,700 devices in 77 TVETs, 4 universities which have received 400 units each, 21 schools which have received 100 virtual desktops each, and we have been doing this up to and including yesterday, but one. We have gone ahead and deployed 100 virtual desktops in 8 ministries, departments, integral ministries, departments, and agencies. We have also supported the county government, and again, so far in this regard, as far as official commissioning is concerned, launch is concerned, we have gone ahead and launched 34 sites. A total of 8,155 59 devices have been deployed in a total of 112 institutions so far. So that is as far as the digital skilling program is concerned. And we have managed through this process, ladies and gentlemen, to create, as we speak, a total of 109 digital jobs. Concurrently, we have managed to train a total of 336,000 youth on digital jobs, courtesy of the Ajira program and the Jitume program. In the same vein, we are at advanced stage of operationalization of KAIST, the Kenya Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, which is going to be a special purpose vehicle for purposes of digital skilling, ladies and gentlemen. We have also managed to operationalize the Kenya National Open University, which is going to be a virtual university, the first of its kind in this country. And I'm happy again to report that tomorrow but one, the Kenya National Open University will be officially commissioned by none other than His Excellency, the President himself. And this university, ladies and gentlemen, will be domiciled at our Konza Technopolis. The other issue or area of focus is digital entrepreneurship. You know, if we are digitalizing all government services and telling the public that you don't need to visit government offices to consume government services, then the question that comes to mind is whether or not we have got a critical mass of Kenyans with smart-enabled devices. And the answer, as we speak, is that there is a gap in the market. We have got inadequate levels. So as opposed to waiting to be reactive in a proactive manner, because we have been thinking in many facets simultaneously, we have gone a step further to partner with the private sector, ladies and gentlemen, to embark on the assembly of smart-enabled phones in the Kenyan market. This is work in progress at a very advanced stage. Based on feasibility studies, we are going to be able to roll out cheap, smart-enabled phones in the Kenyan market at a unit cost of about $40 within the next 1 month. That will be a major milestone, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll move subsequently from local assembly to local manufacture of the handsets themselves. Yeah? And then we move to the next level of local manufacture of computer software. With all this infrastructure in place, again, ladies and gentlemen, the direction we are going as a country is e-commerce. There's no point of continuing with business as usual, where we have to have physical meetings between the source of raw materials and the market. So in this regard, ladies and gentlemen, we have gone ahead and developed an e-commerce strategy so that we take advantage of the critical ICT infrastructure that we are introducing in the Kenyan market. So far, as enablers of e-commerce, we have got 442 public Wi-Fi hotspots. We already have a total of 22,000 kilometers of fiber installed, 179 complete and functional innovation hubs countrywide, and 112 Jitume laboratories. We have gone ahead further, ladies and gentlemen, to create awareness among the Kenyan public. And as we speak, I'm happy to report that as a means of pursuing our digital economy agenda, we have created awareness among 53% of Kenyan adults and 56% of Kenyan youth as far as our digital transformation agenda is concerned. So in the not too distant future, we will be leveraging on technological platforms for purposes of e-commerce. It does not make sense in the era of today to have a direct interface between the seller of a commodity and the buyer. The other issue that we need to discuss is whether or not there is still rationale for Kenyans to physically visit government offices with the amount of technological infrastructure and digital skilling program that we have in place. Does it make sense? If all services are available on the e-citizen platform on one hand, and on the other hand, we have got a commensurate level of digital skills to facilitate optimal uptake of the ICT infrastructure, then why do we have to tell Kenyans that they still have to continue physically visiting government offices? In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, we have embarked on the process of pursuing a digital identity for all Kenyans. When we talk about digital identity, people start thinking about the Huduma number. And I want to clarify that the digital identity we are talking about is not the same thing as the Huduma number, both in terms of objective and context. The Huduma number was meant to facilitate the development of an electronic population database. What we are saying today is that we need a virtual means through which government can confirm that you are whom you claim to be. And if the answer is in the affirmative, then Kenyans can consume government services from the comfort of wherever they are, without physically visiting government services, informed by one's biodata. And that is the direction that we are going, to have a digital identity for all Kenyans. We have done quite a bit of benchmarking. It has happened in Estonia, it has happened in Belgium, it has happened in Pakistan, it has happened in India. These are best case global examples that we can benchmark with. And Kenya can in no way, ladies and gentlemen, be an exception in this regard. Let me also clarify that when it comes to pass, we will not force any Kenyan to take a digital identity. No. The onus will be on you to decide whether or not you want to consume government services through your digital identity based on your biodata, or you want to physically visit government offices. If the services are available technologically, you have got the commensurate level of digital skilling, and government is able to make at your disposal a digital identity, the probability that most Kenyans will opt for consuming government services using the digital identity is tilted in favor of the affirmative. That is what India has done, for example. We were in India the other day, and they told us that when they introduced the digital identity, they did not force people to take the digital identity. People opted for the digital identity because it was the most logical thing to do. So that is the direction that we are going to go, ladies and gentlemen. Then the other issue is the national addressing system, where we have also made fundamental progress. To facilitate e-commerce, ladies and gentlemen, we have developed a draft policy and bill on the national addressing system. We have had stakeholder engagements. We have gotten comments from stakeholders which have been incorporated in that bill and policy. What we are now moving towards is the step of stakeholder validation before taking it to the next level of cabinet approval. And in the same vein, to augment this, we have gone ahead to undertake the Nairobi cadastral mapping, complete with 241 blocks, which will facilitate our e-commerce strategy. Digitalization of cabinet. Cabinet has been undertaking its proceedings through manual processes and paper. And based on partnership between our ministry and the cabinet office, I'm again happy, ladies and gentlemen, to report that we have achieved fundamental progress in this regard. As at January 2023, all cabinet meetings are now being undertaken virtually. And to facilitate this, we have established, installed, operationalized 92 video conferencing facilities in all government ministries and state departments, the presidency, and the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. That is as far as our digital transformation agenda is concerned. But while doing this, for purposes of comfort, may I also state that we have got an elaborate risk mitigation framework to ensure that we will have proper mitigation measures against any acts of cyber security. We have gone ahead, ladies and gentlemen, to establish and operationalize the Office of the Data Commissioner. The mandate of the Office of the Data Commissioner is to ensure that within our digitalization agenda, we are also ensuring adequate levels of both data privacy and data security. We have gone ahead also, ladies and gentlemen, to establish a multifaceted government team that on a continuous basis is undertaking or scanning the operational environment to be able to determine the patterns, because this is a global issue, the patterns of cybersecurity and what we need to do in a proactive manner to have an elaborate risk mitigation framework around our digitalization agenda. So we are on the right trajectory. And let me also, now that we are on this, reaffirm what I've stated before, that the recent incident that we had was not a case of hacking the e-citizen platform. It was a case of an attempted cyber attack. Hacking means you succeed illegally to get into a technological platform that does not belong to you for ill intentions or malicious intentions, and then you go therein and adulterate the data that is domiciled within that platform. That is not what happened. What happened is that there was an attempted attack on the e-citizen platform, among other platforms, including but not limited to those held in the hands of the private sector. But because we already had an elaborate risk mitigation framework around that space, it was unsuccessful. So I want to assure Kenyans that the data that is held by government on their behalf is secure. That incident did not lead to any infringement of the personal data of Kenyans. So the privacy and security of the data in possession of government is very much upheld. And apart from ensuring that we address that challenge, that incident, which we have fully addressed, we have now reverted back to optimal capacity utilization levels as far as the services on the e-citizen platform is concerned. We have gone ahead to ensure that moving forward, we have got an elaborate risk mitigation framework around our digitalization agenda. So we are going the full hog. We are going to pursue this to a logical conclusion, ladies and gentlemen. The other issue that comes to mind is how we are going to fund all these programs. I'm happy to report that we have managed to secure two integral components of funding, one from the World Bank, a threshold of $570 million US, yeah, courtesy of the Kenya Digital Economy Acceleration Program. We have also managed to negotiate and have secured, for purposes of facilitating universal access to connectivity, an additional 5 billion shillings from the Universal Service Fund to support our digital superhighway agenda on one hand and the digitalization of government services ambit on the other. That is as far as our ICT and digital economy component is concerned, ladies and gentlemen. On the side of the broadcasting and telecommunication mandate of the ministry, we have embarked on the process of revitalizing the operations of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. We are upgrading the infrastructure. We have been having a challenge of decaying infrastructure. We have embarked on the process of reviewing the content and re-engineering the business model of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. And in this regard, ladies and gentlemen, may I report that modernization of our TV center is ongoing to improve both sound and signal quality. That has been put to tender already at a cost of 170 million shillings. The information is available in the public portal. We have managed to also tender for the purchase of an outside broadcasting van at a cost of 120 million shillings for purposes of transparency. Let me also state the figure. We have also tendered for the purchase of the radio OB van that is work in progress. We have embarked on negotiations with the Spanish government, ladies and gentlemen, with a view to getting direct foreign capital inflow injection to facilitate the upgrade of our infrastructure, the KBC infrastructure, ladies and gentlemen. We have embarked on the process of migration from medium wave to FM, and in this regard, we have already installed FM transmitters at Marsabit, Lodwar, Webuye, Migori, Kapenguria, Bomet, Malindi, Nyambene, and Nyeri. We have also managed to increase FM radio coverage through the installation of an additional 20 additional transmitters, ladies and gentlemen. The first batch of 10 transmitters have already been procured and is arriving in the country in September 2023. As far as the content and business model of KBC is concerned, again, we are focusing on partnerships and alliances. We have managed to secure sponsorship deals with regard to the World Rugby Championships and also coverage of the Kenyan Premier League by way of free-to-air rights. These have been successfully negotiated by the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. So what I'm saying in short, ladies and gentlemen, that we are determined to revitalize the operations of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation so that this legacy broadcasting entity can punch at its rightful weight in the marketplace. Moving to Postal Corporation of Kenya, this is another area of focus. We are very clear that the only way to revitalize the operations of Kenya, Postal Corporation of Kenya is to go the direction of e-commerce. And in this regard, ladies and gentlemen, we have embarked on an ambitious program of diversification of revenue streams for the Postal Corporation of Kenya, which have so far generated substantial amounts of money as a means of not just re-engineering the operations of that entity, but to inform the turnaround strategy for this giant corporation. So Posta, as we speak today, has managed to secure a working relationship with immigration. We are doing one-stop service from order to passport to tracking last-mile delivery of passports. We have also embarked on the process of ensuring that within the eCitizen portal, we'll have postal addresses and codes embedded therein to facilitate digitalization of postal records and the digitalization of postal services. We have scaled up the services with other ministries, departments, and agencies. As we speak, we have managed to secure a 600 million logistics service arrangement with the IEBC. We have also managed to secure new contracts through our EMS, Expedited Mail Services, which has enabled us to increase the revenue threshold from 600 million in the last financial year to 900 million in the current year. And we have also embarked on last-mile delivery of medical supplies and facilities, ladies and gentlemen. And one aspect of this is the delivery of mosquito nets in collaboration with KEMSA, which is going to give us also an expected amount of 295 million shillings. So what we are saying in short, ladies and gentlemen, is that the direction we are going is to ensure that Posta pursues e-commerce. And we want to position Posta as the organization of choice in this regard. There has also been the issue of how Kenyans communicate with government. How do we leverage on technology to facilitate efficiency and effectiveness in interaction between members of the public and government? In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, again, proactively, consciously, and deliberately, we have decided to establish a national contact center. The National Contact Center will be a point from which citizens interact with the government across various channels. We are soon going to come up with a unique number which Kenyans can use to facilitate 24/7 and 365 days in a year availability to support citizens in seeking interaction with the government, including but not limited also to filing complaints with government, and facilitating reception of those complaints with the relevant government agencies and ensuring that the feedback loop gets to the common citizen within the shortest time possible. And the piloting of this is already undergoing. The next thing is digitalization, digital signatures. If we have got services on technological platforms, we have commensurate level of skills, we have got the digital identity. We don't want a situation where government operations and services will be stalled through unnecessary bureaucracy because officers are not available in their offices, or staff have to physically visit government offices to consume government services, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we have embarked on the process of operationalizing digital signatures across all facets of government. All that we intend to do, whether it is on the ICT and digital economy side or on the broadcasting and telecommunication side, ladies and gentlemen, must be anchored on an enabling policy, legal, and regulatory framework. And in this regard, ladies and gentlemen, through a participatory approach, we have always stated that anything that we are going to do, we know the operational environment is not static, we'll continuously engage relevant stakeholders depending on emerging issues from time to time so that their integral views are integrated in the initiatives that we are going to take. And with a view to ensuring that what we are doing is anchored on a sound legal and policy frameworks, we have been having consultations with various stakeholder segments, relevant stakeholder segments, and we have embarked on major policy initiatives as follows. 1, the national policy on public relations and communications management. Ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this policy is to professionalize information sharing between institutions and organizations and the public, to create a statutory self-regulatory mechanism through which this sector can regulate itself. And in this regard, we have developed the policy, we have submitted to Cabinet, is now waiting Cabinet approval in the not too distant future. The other policy is the National Addressing System, which I had alluded to earlier for purposes of facilitating e-commerce. Again, we have undertaken stakeholder engagement in this regard. Validation has been done. We are now progressing this to the next stage of Cabinet approval. The other policy is the National ICT Policy Guidelines 2020. We have presented this to Cabinet, and an integral component of this policy, ladies and gentlemen, is to amend or remove the 30% equity participation rule required for licensing of ICT service providers. We had got a requirement in the ICT policy guidelines that any investor in the ICT sector had to acquire a 30% local component before getting into the Kenyan market. This rule has been there on paper, but Kenyans have not been able to uptake 30% local component in these ICT companies. So it has not been useful. What has been happening is that tenderpreneurs have been creating unnecessary roadblocks on the path of private sectors who want to invest in the Kenyan space. Yeah? That you need to get 30% shareholding. Somebody does not want to put in money in the enterprise, but wants to be a director on paper. And we are saying we can't continue like this because this is scaring investors. The only leeway that we had was for those entities every year now to apply to the Cabinet Secretary to grant a waiver. We cannot continue like that, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm saying that no single individual in the name of a Cabinet Secretary, starting with myself, should have that discretionary power to decide whether or not a foreign investment company is going to continue operating in Kenya. We must anchor that in law, and in this regard, we have decided to waive that 30% requirement. Foreign companies can now invest in ICT sector without that roadblock. This has been approved by Cabinet, and we are now progressing for gazettement. The other issue is the access to information policy, ladies and gentlemen, and the objective here is to create a basis for implementation or operationalization of the Access to Information Act. This is before Cabinet waiting approval, which I believe will be done in the not too distant future. We also have standalone Cabinet memos, which we have managed to prepare based on consultations between our ministry, the National Treasury, and the Attorney General. They are now foolproof, and I'm happy to report that we are now progressing to forward to the Cabinet a Cabinet memo on the revitalization of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, an elaborate one at that, a Cabinet memo on the revitalization of the Postal Corporation of Kenya for purposes of sustainability, and a Cabinet memo on re-engineering of the government advertising agency. Again, when we get to that point as to how we are revitalizing these organizations, we will call you people, members of the Fourth Estate, again and explain to you what we are doing, because we want to carry everybody along. We are also progressing with the Public Relations and Communication Management Bill, whose intention is to establish a legal framework to regulate the manner in which professionals conduct their practice. This is awaiting Cabinet approval. The public participation phase of it has already been undertaken. There is also the issue of the Kenya Information and Communication Act bill. Public participation is done. The bill is being refined for purposes of onward transmission to Cabinet. The ICTA bill. ICTA has been operating on the basis of a legal mandate. We are saying we need to, considering the fundamental mandate of ICTA, we want to anchor ICTA on a strong legal foundation. In fact, for purposes of clarity, even most of the digital infrastructure agenda that we are rolling out as a government is being undertaken by ICTA. So we want to anchor ICTA on a strong legal foundation, and therefore that is what has informed that bill. The bill is currently in the early stages of drafting, and we will be making progress in that regard. There is also the Kenya Information and Communication Act bill to ensure that the Act aligns to emerging issues in the operational environment. That bill has been formulated. The stakeholder engagement has been finalized. We are moving to the next stage. There is the National Addressing System of Kenya bill, which I alluded to earlier. Public participation is now complete. The KIMC bill, we also want to enhance the performance of the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication by ensuring that its operations is anchored on a sound legal foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let me just explain to Kenyans what the end game looks like. Because it's not going to be business as usual, based on the initiatives that we are undertaking. One, we must prepare for a paperless government. We are not going to have any manual processes in government. Everything will be available on virtual platforms with a view to enhancing efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery. We are going to have a digital identity for all Kenyans to facilitate consumption of government services by Kenyans from the comfort of wherever they are. We are going to have e-signatures with a view again to enhancing the level of efficiency and effectiveness interaction between members of the public and the government. The net effect of all this, ladies and gentlemen, is that we will be able to, at macro level, bring in more Kenyans into gainful economic activity. We will be able to bring in more Kenyans, therefore, into the tax bracket. We will be able, as government, to collect more revenue, acquire or attain enhanced levels of domestically generated revenue so that we are able to service our external debt and have adequate surplus to facilitate both our current and development expenditure. In all this, ladies and gentlemen, as a ministry, we are working together with the industry and all integral stakeholders. We want to carry everybody on board. And I want to appeal to you, including members of the Fourth Estate, to help us augment efforts of government in effective realization of this digital transformation agenda. If we go in that direction, we should be able to position Kenya effectively as the ICT hub of Africa on one hand, and also on the global stage strategically by way of comparative advantage. Thank you very much. May God bless you. So maybe allow me, before we accept questions and answers, PS Tanui, can I call upon you to come and just give opportunity to a few stakeholders from the industry to also explain to us how they are plugging into what the ministry is doing. You remember I did state that we are adapting a whole industry approach. So just a few representatives. Thank you.
Thank you, our CS, for that elaborate communication on what we are doing in respect to connectivity, in respect to what we are doing on digitalization and our progress towards a
Want to advertise your business or product and
the news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for.
That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Moyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the home of Untold Stories.
Katika majengo haya, hapa ndipo sheria zinapotungwa na zinapopakuliwa. Nitakuletea viongozi mbalimbali, mirengo mbalimbali, wote kwa pamoja wakipika na kupakua. Tutawapa nafasi kuweza kuangazia changamoto na mafanikio ya ugatuzi katika ukumbi wa siasa kila siku ya Jumanne kuanzia saa 1 kamili na kuendelea.
Toka eneo hili la Naivasha kwenye kaunti 032, gatuzi la Nakuru.
Toka kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, kaunti 028.
Nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Wajir.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Turukana.
Kwa matukio yote yanayojiri katika kaunti hii 012.
Kutoka kaunti nambari 1, kaunti ya Mombasa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Lamu.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka Kisii County.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Machakos.
Kutoka kaunti hii ya Trans Nzoia.
Kaunti 038.
Kutoka gatuzi nambari 029, kaunti ya Nandi, chemichemi ya mabingwa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Kakamega.
Itakuwa nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Bungoma.
Jina langu ni Paula Munio.
Willy Dennis Jiru.
Fabian Kibet.
Mimi ni Hashim Jimal.
Mimi ni Kitio Mika Masai.
John Javakiania.
Jina langu ni Abdulaziz Nameka.
Mimi ni Kombo Alfayo.
Jina langu ni Nicholas Mbai.
Isaac Famba.
Mimi ni Wanji Sosti.
Jina langu ni Arnold Adidi.
Jina langu ni Chris Bet.
Jina langu ni Violet Auma.
Na TV47 inapotamba, mimi Sheila Chelangat nitakuwa nikiripotia maswala yanayokuhusu wewe kila kuchao. Every Thursday 7:30 p.m. unapata nafasi kufahamu viongozi mbalimbali kutoka humu nchini, kuanzia wabunge.
Through Changa, we could get money to pay our rent, to pay our bills.
When I was growing up, water was a problem where I was born and bred. We wake up at 3 to go and look for water.
Magavana
must be ready to be a tough woman and not a woman to be walked over.
Kwa hivyo
you respect people.
Ndani ya Mfahamu Kiongozi, story na historia, na mi Elizabeth Muchuku.
kwa mirindimo kemkem ya michezo, mahojiano ya kipekee na mabingwa wetu, makala ya kuvutia pamoja na matukio mubashara viwanjani. Shabiki, tutapiga mbizi katika kila kiwanja, ndani na hata nje ya nchi. Mtazamaji, uko tayari? Ni kazi michezoni ama michezo kazini? Ungana nami Ahmed Bahaj, sajili mpya nimefika katika kipindi cha kipekee Mchaka Mchaka. Zitatoka cheche, tutapiga mstari chini yake. Si bora michezo